Hello, hello.
Hello.
I haven't seen you in such a long time.
Caroline, since we're just two of us, I will send you the homework. I apologize for the delay.
Yeah, there's no apology needed. I was just doing a check for myself. So I sent different people emails just to say, so I know I've done the chasing, and then it updates my records. So please don't worry at all. You only have to do it before you hand the assignment in. Yes, but because I know you guys were doing level 4 as well, I thought, well, if I tell them, then they can get it finished, and then it's another job off the list, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Right, let me mark you down as present. We've got 2 more people joining us. One you'll know and one you don't.
Elena.
There we go. Elena's here, and then Maria from another course this summer. There we go. There she is, and then just Maria to join us as well. All good. Clear everything off my desk. There.
Hi, Elena.
Oh.
And one more person that you guys won't know. The lovely Maria from the summer course. There we go. And then you guys should get the assignment through in the next week or so for the level 3. And then this assignment will be separate. Hopefully she's going to join us, then we can get started. No, can't see any sign of her coming in. Okay, well, she can join a little bit then. So we have 4 units for the level 4 course, which are all new learning. And we also have 4 webinars to listen to. So today we're looking at child development, and there is just uploaded today the webinar on child development, which you obviously don't need to watch beforehand, but you can watch afterwards. And then unit 10, which is Thursday, is around weaning and introducing food. And their webinar on that will probably only be on Thursday, because I'm only managed to record it on Wednesday. I'm recording it on Wednesday, 2 days time. But it's the hi Maria. But it's the author of the baby-led weaning books. Have you heard of Jill Rapley?
No.
So she's agreed to do our webinar. So I'm really pleased with that. But she could only do Wednesday after we'd started. So that will be up on Thursday for you. But she's the person who basically invented baby-led weaning the second time round. Because of course we all did that back in years ago. But for the 2000s, she has reinvented it. Then unit 11 is going to be more around sleep in more depth for up to 6 months. And then unit 12 is all about running your business, marketing your business, getting clients, that sort of thing. So this unit's on child development, and we're going to be looking at the main development points over the first 2 years, because although you'll be working as maternity nurses, parents will want to know what's happening next, what's coming up. So it's really important to have that overview. We'll look at things that we expect babies to do and things that are what we call red flags, things that are worries for us. We'll look a little bit about play, and there is a webinar already up for you on infant play with Dr. Dave Neal, who is from the University of Cambridge. They have a research faculty funded by Lego. And the Lego Foundation put money into that to research how children play. So that is one of the webinars already available to you. And then we'll look at attachment theory, because that underpins a lot of what we do. I know 3 of you know each other, but not everybody does. So if we can do introductions, that would be great. So Jana, could we start with you, please?
Sure, my name is Jana. I'm currently located in Slovakia, but I've got experience, 16 years of experience working as a nanny in London. I don't have any maternity nurse experience, and my
Yet.
interests, not yet. And my interests, nutrition, psychology, well-being.
Thank you. Adriana, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. I used to work, currently I'm located in Monaco. I've been in quarantine since mid-February, so I'm going slightly crazy. I worked as a nanny for about 12 years before I went on to studies in London. I'm a naturopathic nutritional therapist and naturopath. And I have some experiences with newborn babies, but not as a maternity nurse, as a nanny to a newborn baby. And that's about it.
Thank you. Elena, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. So, hi, my name is Elena, and I'm based in London at the moment. I'm from Bulgaria originally and have been working as a nanny for 14 years, a bit over 14 years. And as to the ages of the children, I've looked after children from newborns to 12 years old. I have never worked as a maternity nurse, but that's what I want to start doing now, actually. So that's why I'm here as well. This is what I'm
Fantastic.
pursuing. Yeah.
And Maria, these three have already met because they have just finished their level 3 course on Thursday. So they were part of the last group. So that's why they will seem to know each other a little more. Maria, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Maria. I am in Portugal right now, in Lisbon. I'm working currently as a maternity nurse. I'm doing that for the couple of years, 2 years ago, and then I've been a nanny for 8. And yes, I do like to work with newborns a lot.
Great stuff. So you'll get to know the others over the next 2 weeks. So we're going to do an activity first as a group. And you've all been taught by me before, so you know how this all works. We're going to have a look at these different activities, call one out and tell me where you think it should go, roughly between birth and 6 months, 12 months, 18 months or 24. So we'll start with sitting unaided. So sitting up without having to be held by a grown-up.
6 months.
Where would you expect most babies?
Yeah, 6 months.
6 months. Yeah. And we're talking about typically developing babies here, most babies. Smiling.
Birth.
Birth.
So
Around
At birth,
2 months old, so
Birth.
between birth and 6 months.
it's actually generally between about 7 and 8 weeks we expect. So we definitely don't expect it to birth. 2 months is the edge of when we expect it to start. We don't worry, but that's when we would, hope we're getting a smile by. Crawling.
Around 9 months old, I
between
would.
6 months and 12 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
Between 6 and 12. It's a really wibbly one that some children will not do at all. They will just go from sitting to walking. But yes, between 6 and 12 months, so around 9 months is a good guess. Throwing a ball, not
18 months old.
18 months, yes.
yeah, around there. Rolling from their front to their back.
Between 3 months up.
Yeah, around 3-4 months. I mean, 5 even. I don't know. It depends.
Might be a
on the
little bit
baby.
later. Should be before 6 months, but around there. And rolling from the back to the front.
A bit later than that. So,
Yeah,
well,
a
6,
little
7.
bit later, 5-6 months. But it tends to be just after.
Okay.
Finger feeding themselves. So picking some food up and getting it into their mouth.
12 months
12
old.
months about.
Any other guesses?
Oh, it could start from 9. I mean,
Yes, yes. Between 10, 12, 9, 12.
Interesting. You are going to love the webinar with Jill exactly then? 6 months. From 6 months. So we're now weaning around 6 months, and babies can go straight to pick up and put in mouth. I won't tell any more, but you will love the webinar because she will explain all about this. So that will be new learning. Their first word, baby's first word.
Around 12 months.
18 months.
12.
Yeah.
Can be before, can be after, but around their first birthday is when we expect. Walking.
12 months.
It can be
Or a
from
bit
10
after. Or a bit,
Same sort of thing.
or-
It can be a little before, it can be a little after.
Yeah.
So I'll put like that. Sucking.
from birth.
Breath.
They come out and they can suck, can't they? So we have that one straight away. Oh, it says my internet connection is unstable. That's not very helpful, is it? Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's it doing? Good, okay, right. Around 50 words. When would we expect a child to be able to say about 50 words?
18 months
24
old.
months.
How old?
Between 18 and 24, but around 18 months old, I would assume.
People agree, people disagree?
I guess that's also individual, isn't it,
It is
Caroline?
individual.
Yeah.
It is. We would expect them to be able to understand 50 words about 15 months and be saying about 50 words around 18 months. It's not the sort of thing that we're going to worry if it's a month or two late, though, because it can be a lot later in some children. But yeah, around a year and a half. A deliberate grip, that means that the child is not just going there and hitting something, but is reaching out for something.
More than
6 months.
6 months. When they're gonna
Oh, before then.
of-
We'll have before, yeah, it'll be before then. We're sort of from about 4.5, 5 months. We might see them actually reaching and grabbing for something. Babbling. Babbling means bad, 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 dad, da, na, 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 na kind of noises.
7, 6, 7.
6,
8.
7.
7 months.
After 6 months. So definitely not as far as 12, but after 6 tends to be. Stranger anxiety. So knowing that you're not their mum, and that's also quite scary.
For most kids, it's before the 10th month, before they're 10 months old. So 8, 9.
8 is perfect. Yeah, 8 is perfect. It's when something, the brain develops and they're suddenly like, oh, this is not a good thing anymore. Running, actual running.
After 24.
Sorry, my little dog wants to go out. Go on, little dog. She decided she wants to take a shoe around the dark garden, so hey ho.
Is it
Okay,
after
running, when would we
24
expect children to run?
24.
Just around 18 months old, I would assume.
I think it's after 24 months.
Really?
I don't know.
I've seen lots of
But
kids.
running. I think it's after 24.
Yeah,
No.
we're going to go somewhere after 18 months, nearer to 24 months. And talking, but with syllables that can be heard again and again. Ma, 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 ba, ba, ba.
12.
12
plus
months
12.
Close to 12. Before, a little bit before.
or before.
It'll be a little bit before, because we're thinking our first word around 12, so it might be a little bit before that. We'll put it about there. Eye tracking. So that means if you hold a toy in front of them, they will watch it as it goes past.
It's the early age, isn't it? 1
Yeah,
month.
they can do that at 2, 3 months, I would think.
In
Or-
fact, we can see them do that pretty much from birth. Not
From
not
birth?
for long, but if you have a tiny newborn baby, you put something there, you can see them track a little bit. Not for long, but it is generally present from birth. Hand to hand, that means putting a ball in one hand and transferring it to the other hand themselves.
That's around 12 months old.
I wouldn't
The
know.
object hand to hand. earlier,
Little
I
before
think
then.
so.
Little before
then.
12 months old?
What do you think, Anna?
Yeah.
What do you think, Anna? Did you say sorry?
Oh, are you talking about me, Caroline?
So Jana, I thought, did
Oh,
you say
okay.
something? I'm hearing
Yeah,
two people
I
at
think
once,
I
I
was
think.
just talking to myself. I think it was between 6 months and 12 months. I don't know.
Yeah, somewhere between 6 and 12 months that we'll see that transferring. We'd certainly expect to see it before 12 months or by 12 months. The Moro reflex, that's the startle when they and they sort of leap out at themselves.
birth.
Yeah, that's absolutely from birth. It's one of those instinctive reflexes. Cruising is a stage before walking where they're holding the furniture and they're moving along, but they have to hold on or else they will fall off.
That's like between
After
7
12
months, 6, 8 months.
I would think more around 10, 11 months. So.
Yeah.
It
But I think
often comes after crawling. We'd certainly expect to see it by 12 months. Often it's in that later half of the year. But of course, all babies are different.
Yes.
So what we're going to look at now is for different ages, things we would expect the majority of babies to do, most babies. And we'll also look at some red flags. So things that if they're not happening by then, we actually do want to raise with a health professional. Because there are some things that were like, oh, well, they didn't walk until 15 months. This is fine. You know, children are a bit early, children are a bit late. But sometimes we reach a stage where we think this actually needs investigation. So for 3 months, the things that most children will do, they're going to be born with their innate reflexes. So these are the things that they should be born doing. Startling, they have a crawl from birth. They can move from birth. With these reflexes, they generally then lose the reflex and then regain it as a skill. But actually, babies very young have a crawl reflex. They will try and move. And what you can see is what's called the birth crawl. So baby, if you place baby here, newborn baby just out of the womb, they will be able to maneuver themselves up and onto a breast. They have a birth crawl. And I see this with, because I work with mothers who give birth, as part of my work. You can see if they lie down and they're nice and relaxed, that baby will move themselves up the body to the breast, a little bit like a baby kangaroo will do. They do lose that reflex later on, but they can crawl immediately, which is why we don't tell people that, they can put them in an unsafe sleeping position, because that newborn baby can move a lot. They have a step reflex. Again, they lose this, but if you hold them like this, their little legs will do this when they're newborn. That then fades and they relearn walking, but it's an innate reflex. They have a grip. So if you put your finger there, they do this, and they have a root. Where's the nipple? And all of those are present from birth. They start to be able to lift their own head by 3 months. So if you put them on their tummy, lifting up by 3 months. Smiling is around 7 weeks. Laughing is 3, could be 4 months. They vocalize, they're noisy from birth, but it's not babbling, it's not baba na ma na, it's gurgling or cooing, it's not little noises. They cry for their needs, and they can visually track those objects. They have a newborn, do that very slowly, they will look round. So if a baby by 3 months isn't sucking well or is feeding slowly, of course, we want to get support for this, because we need that baby to be feeding well to put on weight. If they don't blink, if there's a bright light, we put that light in and they don't blink, we'd like to go to a doctor and have their vision checked out. If by 3 months they don't focus and follow a nearby object moving side to side, so if by 3 months they have not been able to do this, that will be a red flag. So it's not a red flag at birth, although many babies can do that. It's by 3 months that then is actually, there is possibly something that needs investigating. If they don't move their arms and legs like this little flower is, if they're not doing that sort of movement by 3 months, or if they seem stiff or very, very floppy, we would like to get these babies checked out. If they have when they're very young, they do this kind of, and their little jaw moves when they're upset. If they're doing that when they're not crying and they're not excited, they're neutral, but their little jaw is going, we want to get that checked out. It's fine if they're doing it when they're crying or they're happy or they're excited. But if the rest of the body is calm and the jaw is moving, we'd like to get that checked.
What is it about?
And if they don't respond to loud sound. Sorry?
What does it mean?
Adriana?
What does it mean, Caroline?
It could be that there's something neurological going on and they've not actually got control of all of their muscles.
Okay.
So that would need to be checked by a health professional. And then doesn't respond to loud sounds. Obviously, we have babies who will sleep through everything, and some babies will sleep deeply, and that's fine. But if they're awake and you do a big clap and they don't turn round to you by 3 months, we'd like to get that checked. Although babies have their hearing checked at birth, that isn't it isn't foolproof, that check. Some babies who have hearing loss can pass that check and actually not develop properly. So the red ones are all things that you'd like to say to your parents that you're working with, let's go to the doctor or let's go to the health visitor, let's get these checked out. And this is baby Bella, who, as you can see, is smiling. She's just coming up to 3 months. She's smiling, she's moving, she's quite equal in her body. It's not just one side or the other. So all the babies here are ones I've worked with. Any questions on 3 months? Okay. So 8 months, and this is baby Mia. So by 8 months, we're expecting that she can roll over in both directions. So although most babies will have this 5-6 months, it's completely normal to be up to 8 months. Might see the first teeth. Can you see in the photo? She's just got 2 down here, just emerging. Stranger anxiety, completely normal, keeps babies safe. Most of these innate behaviors are there to keep babies alive. So when a baby can now be sat down, it's not being here all the time. It might be starting to crawl, it might be sitting. Nature has put in that a good idea would be to now be scared of other people. You know, nature says, now you can move. We need to teach you to be scared so you don't go off with the bad guys. She should turn to sounds and voices. So if we're chatting in the room, she should be looking around and watching us. Certainly starting to eat solid food. We wean at 6 months and we'll do a whole session on weaning. But some parents will need to delay. We need to be starting that solid food by 8 months. So if parents are still on puree, on just liquids, or very, very mashed up food, by 8 months, we need to be moving to solid or lumpy foods. Beginning to babble in syllables, that's that mam, 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 da, 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 da. And imitating speech sounds and tones. So if you go, ba, 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 she might go, So she's starting to copy. And the puppy now needs to come in, of course. Little puppy, come on. In and out, aren't you? In and out, good girl. There we go. Things that by 8 months, and it is a big gap between 3 and 8, I know, and that's because a lot of these behaviors still at 6 months, 7 months is okay, but by 8 months is a problem. But I've put down where there are different, where it's been in between those 2 sessions. So if they're not turning their head to find a sound by 4 months, we'd like to seek some support for their hearing. If by 8 months they're not rolling either back or front to back to front or front to back, if they're not doing either of those, we want to get that checked out. If by 5 months they've not given us a smile, so we think it's 7 or 8 weeks normally, if it's not come by 5 months, we do want to check. By 8 months, if they can't sit without help, sit down and they're going to go over. And still babies will go over all the time at 8 months, but we expect them to be able to sit like Mia is there and to stay there, you know, for a bit of time before falling over. But, the falling over is still normal, but we wouldn't expect them to sit and not be able to maintain that at all without an adult there. If they're not laughing and making squealing yee sounds, if they're not actively reaching for objects by 8 months, if they're not bearing weight on their legs, that means when I hold baby up, she's able to do something here to keep herself up. I'm still holding, but she's doing something. She's not just flopping down. By 8 months, we'd expect her to be waving or hitting out to us to get attention. And we'd expect that mama baba babbling. And peekaboo is the best game for babies. Peekaboo. You might call it something different, Peepo or something, but that game, by 8 months, we would expect her to be interested in, laughing at. So it's a good sort of test, that game of, is the child responding? They might be crying, that's still a response, or they might be happy, but we wouldn't expect nothing. Any questions on the 8 months?
No.
No.
Okay. So 12 months, and who is this? This is Leo for his first birthday. Bless him. He's like just about to do that, isn't he, into a cake? I didn't have him at 1 year. I had him when he was newborn, but mums send you photos. It's so lovely, and they've all given permission for their babies to be used, which is really nice and kind of them. So thank you to the mums for sharing their baby photos. But it's lovely. You just get it through on the WhatsApp with, oh, I haven't heard from you in a while. Here's little baby doing this now, which is just delightful. So Leo, by 12 months, we'd expect him to crawl or bum shuffle, but he may well have begun walking or cruising. So some of those movements will happen. And some, if they miss them, but they get to the next stage, we're not worried. So it says red, does not crawl. That means if by 12 months, he is not crawling or bum shuffling or walking, doing any of these things, we worry. If he doesn't crawl, but he's cruising, he's just skipped a step. This is fine. So we wouldn't worry about not crawling when he's moved on to the next stage. But if he's not doing any of them, if he's just sat there and that's it, he doesn't move, at 12 months, we would be concerned. And again, he may not be walking or cruising, but we'd expect him to stand. When we hold his little hands, he should be able to stand. He should understand simple instructions, and we do mean simple. Where's the ball? He looks at the ball. Pat the dog. Come to mummy. Those sort of level of instructions a 1-year-old should be able to very much understand and cope with. We should see that he is happy to see familiar people. And that doesn't necessarily mean granny, because if granny is familiar to mum and dad, but Leo doesn't see granny very often, that does not count as a familiar person. Even if she's been Skyping every week, that's not the same. What we mean by that is the people who live with him or he sees every day, he should be happy to see those people. Once a week still might be upsetting, but if they live with him, they should be happy to see. Obviously, put your abuse hat on, safeguarding hat. If he's always upset at someone, there's a potential that that's because actually he sees them a lot and it's not nice. But in general, he should be happy to see people. He should be eating a family diet. So by 12 months, we're done with any sort of purees. We should be eating cake or, what our parents are eating. Should definitely be able to pass those items between hands. Wave bye-bye. It might be like that, but with some sort of on command waving. We should see mama, dada. Now that of course is for English speaking children. Please insert the appropriate first word for your, the country of the child where this is. So let's just take it. So I would have mama, dada as my first. Diana, what would you expect in Slovakia?
Mama is the, yeah.
Mama.
Mama.
And for father, is it papa or dad? Yeah. Adriana, what would you expect?
Oko. I know I called my dad Oko.
Ah, was that just
Yeah.
you though? Adriana, what might you expect?
Well, I am also Slovak, so I come from the same country, Canada. So it would be mama, mommy, mama, or oco, which is a familiar way of expressing father. It would be oko. Yes, oko, ochko. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a funny way, very funny way.
Elena, what might babies in Bulgaria be saying
Well,
first?
well, so mama is the same. So it's mama, mama. And for the father, it will be tati or tate. Tati,
Super.
tate. Mhm.
Maria, what might you expect to hear?
Mama, which is the same, and papa.
Mhm.
So similar, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just, so be aware, I've put mama, dada, but that's only speaking from a British speaking
So it
context.
seems mama
And,
to be the kind of like international one.
Yeah.
Mama was the same for
and
everybody.
it's probably, mama has emerged because it's a syllable that's really easy for babies to say. So we named mothers because of what babies first said. He's starting to combine syllables. So instead of just having the repeated mama, we might have baba, bapa, data. So having different aspects of a word, or even two syllable. I'm just trying to think of something. Doggy. So something like that might come out, and we might have our first word. So my daughter's was duck. And that's because we had a duck that came to live on our lawn that year. We didn't live near a pond. We just had a duck out every day. And I think the other one was dog because we had a dog by that point. They always understand more than they can say. So at 12 months, they'll understand at least 20 to 50 words. May well be very many more, but at least 20 to 50 simple nouns. They'll search for hidden objects. That means if Leo picked that, piece of cake up and dropped it, he would go, oh, where is it? And he would expect it to be on the floor. And if we put a ball underneath a blanket, we'd expect him to go, where's the ball? So that idea of object permanence, it's called, the idea that things haven't just disappeared, that they should be somewhere.
Object, sorry,
They
object,
imitate, sorry, object permanence. Object being a thing, permanence meaning it's permanently there. It's going to be there all the time. So I've got a water bottle. Have I still got a water bottle? You all know I have, right? Because it's behind my back. A 6-month-old, the water bottle ceases to exist. So by 12 months, they have that idea that even though it's hidden, it's still there. And then certainly by 12 months, we're expecting them to feed themselves. They can start at 6 months, but by 12 months, most of their food will be hands in or spoon in, dependent on the child. So the things we'll worry about if they're not crawling or anything else, if they're not moving from that sitting position, if they're not standing, if they're not searching for objects that are hidden whilst they watch. So if I put the ball underneath the blanket and he's just like, yeah, whatever, and it's something he likes, this would be a concern. So it's always about if in the best possible situation, not that he doesn't do it all the time, but will he do it at all with his favorite teddy, with his favorite things, with something important? If he's not got any single words, if we've not got, not just a dog or a duck, we've not got mum, mum, dad, dad, we've not got anything like that coming out at all. And it's okay if he's saying it, but he's saying it to many people. So if he said mum, 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 mum to all of you, that still kind of counts as being okay. If he's not waving or shaking head, nothing like that happening, not pointing in books. And then the physicality, if they're always very stiff or always super floppy, they're always a worry. If he's not wanting to cuddle, and that means his mum or his dad, not just you or, a friend, if he's never cuddling the people who are his closest people. Again, the person who cares for him the most, if he's not showing that he's happy with them and affectionate towards that person that he's his primary carer, this is a concern. It doesn't mean every time Granny comes around, he cries. That's completely normal. And parents have to understand that. It's not about who they like, it's about who he's used to. And those things are very different. So a child of 12 months old who cries every time granny comes in the house is a completely normal child. But a child who cries when his father is there and his father lives there permanently, does not go on long trips, is there all the time, that's a concern. If you've got one eye or both eyes turning inwards, so instead of the eyes being straight, one of the eyes is facing inwards or facing outwards, we
The
would get
lazy
doctor.
eye, isn't it?
Yes, lazy eye, absolutely. If he's not responding to sounds and if he's not able to get things into his mouth, all of those are concerns. Please, yep.
Caroline,
Adriana?
we have a baby here, little Esty. She's more than 15 months old. She's still not walking. Is that okay?
Next slide. Okay, so she's 15 months.
She's 15.
We expect a 15-month-old to walk alone, but it is not yet a red flag. So although most children will, and she is later than most, it is not a red flag at 15 months.
Okay, thank you.
At 18 months, not walking. Can you see here? So if she gets another 18 months and she's not walking, this is when we would like some support. But 15 months is still normal. It's the outside of normal, but it is still normal.
Thank you.
But most children will walk alone. Makes lots of speech sounds. You might not understand them. It's that kind of talking that it sounds like it's their own language. It's just we haven't been told the language. Communicates what they need because they point, they say things, they shout. A 15-month-old tells you what they would like. 2 to 6 words. Obviously more is always good, but we would expect 2 words, 3 words, 4 words, 5 words, 6 words is completely normal. To enjoy books, not all the time, but sometimes. To require regular reassurance, it's completely normal for 15 months old to not want mummy to go into the kitchen to cook, to want them, you know, there all the time, to be hugged and, yeah, I'm just doing this. They need you to keep hugging them back. We'll expect her to show familiar affection. To start using spoons if she hasn't already. So she might be doing that before, but by 15 months, we would expect a spoon to be used. Indicating wants with gestures, so pointing or some words, and to understand more than 50 words. And we're going to be worried if her balance is not good, if she's holding things and she's still falling over a lot, if she's not weight bearing, so she's not pulling up and holding herself, if she's stiff or she's not babbling, she's not had any speech sounds coming out, that's when we'll be concerned about this little girl. And then by 18 months, they should turn pages of a book, probably a cardboard book, unless you want rips, but they can do that turning movement. Playing on their own. So most of the time, of course, they want to play with their carer, but they can sometimes be playing with a toy and you're doing something else. They like music, they like dancing, they know that they have pooed. They may not tell you, but you can see that kind of movement that's like, oh, I'm poo face, or they go and hide. It doesn't mean they have to tell you, but you can see that the child is doing something that shows, oh, there's a thing happening and this is a poo. Crawling or walking upstairs one at a time. Either holding a railing or holding a hand, they need some help, or they're crawling up on their own. But we don't expect 1 step, 2 step, 3 step with their feet. We expect step up, step up. Pushing and pulling toys whilst they're walking, and we expect children at 18 months to be walking. Climbing or climbing out of things. So this is the age when they start to climb out of cots, some children. And if they can climb out of a cot, they shouldn't be in a cot. So it's more dangerous to keep a child in a cot when they can climb out than it is to keep a child in a bed where they can climb out. because the cot is always that risk of falling, whereas coming out of a bed is going to be less damage. Same thing for their high chair. So you may be ditching a high chair now, they can climb out of their stroller. So, you know, always strapping in, of course, but we expect them to be able to wiggle out some of them. To give the ball to mummy, not all the time, but to understand that idea of, I give this to you. Pick up and eat small pieces of food, drink from a cup, not always successfully. Turn things upside down to get stuff out. So if you've put some, you know, some sweets in a cup, they can turn it like that. Stack 3 or more blocks. This is one of the typical kind of tests that health visitors will do. Give 3 blocks. Can they put 1, 2, 3 or more on top of each other? Have they got some scribbling? And it's not this sort of hold, it's this chunky hold. Can they make some sort of mark? 2-word sentences. Me go, me want. It's all about me. Now please. If they say please, bad dog. These sort of sentences may come out. Or of course they might be saying much more, but this is the sort of the basic minimum, what we expect most children to. And around 20 to 50 words or more. And we would be worried if your little one, Adriana, by 18 months is not walking. We need to get to the paediatrician then. Yeah. Poor hand control. That means they're still not grasping things and getting things, you know, easily. Balance, stiffness, food refusal, gagging and choking. So if we're on those family foods and they are really unhappy, we'll do more of this in the weaning session, what's a picky eater. If they're gagging constantly, they constantly look like they're about to be sick and choking, we'd like to get things checked out. If at 18 months they're still having soft foods, not family foods, this is an issue and we would like to get some support with that. And then 24 months old, looking like a proper child now. Who's that? Elizabeth. So she may well be climbing out of her cot. Speech is more sophisticated. So, you know, I have Daisy. It's not always got all the words in, but she's got some context there. Able to follow a series of commands. So not just give me the, you know, give me the flour, but give me the flour and sit down, sort of 2 or 3 steps in a row. Put your shoes and your coat on and come with me. They'll generally follow the parent around, be very demanding, all normal. It's not that your child isn't independent, they need to go through this stage. Sibling rivalry, that means problems with the brothers or sisters may come out at 24 months or younger. The sharing doesn't happen, we just take it and the other kid cries. This is all very normal at this age. Fussy eating is common. You know, liking cucumber this week and hating it next week is completely normal. Only eating yellow foods is probably quite normal. You know, only eating, you know, liking crisps and things. Being fussy is normal. When we have our weaning session, we'll look at when it's a problem. Can fully feed themselves. Obviously, at 24 months, we're still cutting things up. You know, we're not giving them a steak dinner. But pretty much, if they've got a spoon or a fork and a plate of cut up food, you're good, they can do that. Walking downstairs, again, it might be step, 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 but they can get down. At least 50 words and naming 6 body parts. Head, tummy, hands, face, whatever their parents have chosen, but that's a good, again, a good test of their vocabulary. And 2 to 4 word sentences. Me go toilet now, that sort of level or more. I mean, you know, many 2-year-olds will have much more sophisticated speech. Again, if they're still not walking, we're seriously concerned. Toe walking at 24 months, we're going to get checked out. That means when they're just on the tippy toes all of the time. It's something that we need to just get checked out with a health visitor. Stiffness always is stiffness and rigidity can be an issue that paediatricians need to check. And if there's no pretend play, so if they're never giving you a pretend cup of tea, if they're never having imaginary friends, if there's no form of them pretending to do things, I'm hoovering or I'm cooking, build or whatever they're interested in, but We definitely want to see pretending play. That's the norm at 24 months. If they're not interacting, if they're completely solitary all the time, they don't care what the adults that they like are doing. It's completely normal for them not to play with other children. And we have them playing alongside. So they might both be at the sandpit, but they're doing their own thing. But we would expect them to interact with the people that they like. So giving you that pretend ice cream, do you mean the ice cream game's great at 24 months, you know, let's make ice creams, what color, do you know, what type do you want? And they'll come and give you 100 ice creams. So we'd expect some interaction, generally with adults or older siblings, not generally with children of their own age. And again, that food refusal, gagging and choking is something we'd want to get checked out. Right, any questions on those slides before we move on? Okay, yep, Elena?
So just one question. It was about stacking blocks in a tower.
Mm-hmm.
Does it matter what the size of the block is? Does it matter?
What we mean is about that size, or and if they can do it
Quite
smaller,
big.
that's fine.
Okay.
But if they can't do this sort of block size, that's what we would expect.
Okay.
And often they can do it a lot smaller, but we're not looking at only, you know, this is the magic thing. It's those quite big chunky blocks that they should be able to stack on top.
Yes, great, thanks.
And if they can do more, of course, it's always good, but this is sort of the minimum for what we expect.
Got it.
Jana?
I have a question. One of my friend's son, he was lately, recently 12 months old, but no teeth. Is it normal?
Yes. Yeah, teeth generally start over the first sort of 4 to 8 months, but they can be a lot later. So 12 months is still not something that we'd worry about too much.
Thank you.
So if it's none by sort of 15 months, then we'd want to go back to the health visitor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's something that can be very, you know, can have from birth and can have after 12 months. Most children are 4 to 8 months, 4 to 9 months, but not a worry yet.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so something that you may well come across is called Wonder Weeks. Who have a hands up of the Wonder Weeks? Right, this is
actually, yes,
this is not a UK, yeah, this is not a UK thing. This is actually a Dutch thing, but it is very big in the UK. So many of your UK parents will talk about this and be aware of this. It's actually some Dutch research though. And the guy who originally did a study, he originally looked at apes. So I don't know if you'll know the name, you're probably too young, but Jane Goodall was a researcher into apes. Yeah.
Yes.
Very interesting work. This researcher worked alongside her for many years, looking at how apes developed and then moved into human babies. Spoiler, they're not the same. But when he moved into humans, he used some of the work from the apes and decided that there were some times in a baby's life when they were more fussy, they were likely to be more difficult. And after that, a change in their behavior happened. They learned some new things. And he's made a very successful book and app and website called Wonder Weeks. And what it does is you put in your baby's due date and it will tell you in 2 weeks' time, you will have a bad week. In 3 weeks' time, you will have a good week, and so forth. And it's very, very popular in the UK. Unfortunately, he only did the work on 15 families. So the science behind it is very shaky. And he had a PhD student who tried to do a follow-up with 4 families, did not find the same thing at all. So we do know that babies go through periods of development. This is definitely true. They go through periods of development and they may show fussy or difficult behaviors, and they obviously move on cognitively. There's stuff going on up here. But what there's not an agreement on in terms of psychologists and neuroscientists is when that happens. So the app will predict it from the birth date, or the due date, not the birth date, but the due date, and say literally on Thursday, expect this to happen. Which is a problem, because obviously if you're told something bad's going to happen on Thursday, you're more likely to notice bad things. It can make parents anxious. And for some babies, of course, they will have a bad day on Thursday, but the science behind it is not great. Have a read of the article if you come across families who are using this. But there are definitely periods when babies do have these fussy behaviours, but we can't necessarily predict them to the week, which is what this app does. So have a little look at the article if you come across families who are using it. I mean, only one of you has even heard of it, so it might be that families that you're working with, this is not a thing for them. But in the UK, it's a big thing, which is why I include it, because we normally get lots of questions. The science behind it is not great. Adriana.
I only have a question. If you do not use this application from the very start, can you use it from any point?
Yeah, yes, it's a book and an app that you can just put in the age and it will tell you now what they are doing.
Okay.
So yeah, parents can use it at any time, but I don't recommend it.
Yeah,
I do not recommend it because it ties parents to a certain week when they think this will happen. There are good things in it. It has a good thing that tells you activities to do. You know, a 4-month-old baby might like doing this. That is good. But I don't recommend it to parents because I don't like them thinking next week's going to be bad. I won't go and book to see my mother because I know next week's going to be a bad week, because there isn't enough science to show that, you know, majority of babies are going to have the same timings. And Brazelton, which is a researcher in the UK who's dead now, but has done much work on infant development, has a great quote here, which is, normal babies are not all alike. It's normal to be different, which is, Adriana, what you were saying. So thinking about how can we support babies in their development, and many parents will ask you how they can help a baby to, how can I help my baby to learn to roll over? How can I help my baby to learn to sit up? You know, what can I do? What can we do to make this happen? And the truth is that there's not a lot you can do. Obviously, we don't want babies to have no input. You know, we're expecting that babies will be talked to, held, moved, but they don't need to be taught to do those things on the lists. All of those things for the different months, they will happen. That is part of normal infant development. So unless they are those babies in Romanian orphanages who are just stuck in a cot and never spoke to anyone all day and had no toys, which obviously will affect their development, if they're living in a normal house, a rich house, a poor house, it doesn't matter, they will learn to do these things. And there's not a lot that we can do to make these things faster. Obviously, a baby might not make those things happen because they have something wrong with the baby. If there's a developmental delay, something neurological, something physical, they may well not learn those things or not as fast because there's a medical thing that is stopping them. But generally, playing with the babies, talking with the babies, giving them opportunities to move, they will learn these things. If you have a baby who spends all of their day like this in a bouncer chair, that's not going to help them learn to roll over because there's no opportunity for that to happen. But we don't need to spend days going, go on, baby, go on, baby, go on, baby. That won't help them either. We want something in the middle where they have opportunities to be in different positions and have reasons to move, but without forcing them to do something, because until all of the muscles and the brain all match up, they will not learn this skill. So we assure parents that those age ranges that we talk about are really wide, and comparing either with other friends' babies or with their brothers and sisters is never helpful. And you can get twins who do things at a different rate because they are different people. So this is Mia and Mum Wendy. You've seen them before. I'd like you to think of a baby that you have worked with So think of a specific baby. It's really important to think of an actual baby, not just 3-month-olds. And think of 3 developmental or play activities you could try with that baby. So Adriana, I'd use your 15-month-old that you're with at the moment. Everybody else, think of a baby either that you're with at the moment or that you've worked with before, but actually be able to tell me a bit about what this baby likes and 3 things for a certain age that you could do with them. So we'll just spend a couple of minutes. We'll have a loo break if you need it, and we'll come back in a couple of minutes time with 3 ideas and a little bit about your baby at that stage of development. Any age is fine, 0 to 2 years is fine. We'll start back when everybody comes back.
May I start?
We'll just wait for Adriana if that's okay.
Caroline, this is your dream client, right?
Yes, this is very well remembered. Yes, which is why there's so many pictures of Mia, because she sends me them all the time and give me permission. So that Mia features a lot because she was, she sends me them all the time. It's very
great. And she was the baby that was on the slide of what a baby should do by 8 months old. That was Mia, right?
Yes, she was, and also 18.
Oh,
so she was
really?
also, that's Mia as well.
That's Mia as well. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's so lovely. So she's there. So that was her. And then the same baby that she looks like a little grown-up child there, doesn't she? Though
she
Scary.
does. I didn't recognize her then.
Right back. She always had a lot of hair, but this is her a lot earlier. Well remembered. So, okay, Jana, would you like to tell us about your baby that you've chosen and 3 things you would like to do with them?
Yes, I would like to talk about Owen. I used to look after. That time he was 8 months old. And he loved when I was reading books to him. These kind of books, he could touch the texture, different texture.
Feeling books, yeah.
Feeling books. He loved it. And I'm sure it's for every child it's very good to read books for many reasons.
Well, you know, my PhD is on that.
Yes.
The PhD I'm writing at the moment is on, yeah, basically it's all very good. Very, very good, do this, but there's something he particularly liked.
And then we used to join the group with the nursery rhymes, with singing and playing with the instruments, you know, very easy for little babies.
Shaky things, hitting things, yeah.
Joy. And also he loved when I played with the puppet toys with him.
Yeah, finger puppets.
He just loved that.
Brilliant, thank you. So I've got reading, feeling books, finger puppets and making music. Thank you. Adriana, who are you thinking of?
It's been a while since I looked after babies. It's not my role within this family here to look after one, but my absolute favorite child I looked after was the last one. Her name was Amber, but it was her sister Sasha that was born, and that was the newborn baby I looked after too. I don't know. I have the most fondest memories of these girls because I'm very much hands-on, very practical, and so from just pure imitation and the desire to be like you, like the adult you look after and love, from cooking, from steering, from singing, from talking, from reading. I mean, there's so much really. Singing, and for example, this family is really high achieving family, and they've got this 15-month-old baby, but they're already thinking how to develop their educational skills the fastest possible way. And so I'm very pleased to hear what we just said in one of those slides, that actually if you give the opportunity for the baby to develop, you don't really need to educate or go into that education.
Not teaching. Absolutely.
Yes.
And if they want to read my PhD, statistically, the most beneficial thing that parents can do within the home learning environment is reading with their children.
Yes.
And that does not mean teaching them to read.
No.
It is not about ABC. It is about sharing books and what we call extra textual talk. The idea of, he's got a red ball. You've got a blue ball, haven't you? Should we play with the ball when we go to the park? Turn the page. Oh, look, the bear is going on a bus. Shall we go on a bus? Where would you sit if you're on a bus? The talk around the book and that sharing experience, the silly voices, not you read it, teach you to read, is statistically the most important thing that parents and carers can do in terms of future academic development. It's more important. How much they read equality ends up being more important than how educated the parents are, how rich the parents are. So even if this is a parent within a one-bed flat, or living in a hostel and has very bad conditions, they can make the most impact on their child, not by getting a university degree or not by having a better house, but by reading with their child. So that's to tell your clients, that's from my PhD research. It's the most important thing that they can do.
My sister used to be a nanny, and her baby boy just turned 2, and just what you just said, the little boy walked at the 9 months already. He had, 100 words already, because the more you give, the more you will receive, really. Yeah,
absolutely. We're reading, we're talking, we're singing, all of these things. What we're not doing before 5 is teaching. And there is a lot of evidence that whether children start formal education at 4 years old, as they do now in the UK, or at 7 years old, as they do in many European countries, the difference by age 11 is then nothing. So starting early does not mean cleverer.
Yes.
What we do know, though, is that starting too early for some children will put them off learning. Some children, they will love it. Some children, they will put them off. So starting early is more likely to do damage than it is good in terms of formal education. So those countries which focus on kindergarten rather than school have generally better education, rates and systems, and their children are doing as well or better at 11 and beyond. So early is not always good.
Is it because you take that creativity years away from a child? Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things that we need children to do in order to succeed academically is to enjoy it. Yeah. So the more we can focus on the enjoyment, and the later those skills are taught, the easier they come. Teaching a 3-year-old to read and teaching a 7-year-old to read, if it's the same, ability of child, the 7-year-old, quick. The 3-year-old, many lessons to learn. So the later it is to a certain level, they can do things quicker, they experience more success, they're more ready. They're not learning to write whilst their bones still haven't even grown in their hands. When we're teaching 3 and 4-year-olds, and if you look at an x-ray of a 3-year-old's hand, a 4-year-old's hand, there are big gaps. They cannot, do this all very easily. You teach it at 6 or 7, they have much more ability to get it right, not the first time, but early. So you have more enjoyment, more success, and that goes together to equal children who want to do well at school and who are interested in their learning. And I'm not saying that this is your family, but some families where they push too early, the child then, it's learning, it's lessons, it's not nice, it's homework, and they're not engaged in their learning, and that has a negative effect. But of course, we don't know. When the child is 3, we don't know which of those children will love it and which of those children will hate it. So for all children, leaving later is generally a good thing, because those bright children, they will still learn. No one's saying you don't learn if you're not being taught formal lessons. You're just learning different things. Right. Maria, would you like to share a child with us?
Yes. I was taking care of a kid. He was about 12 months. He had an obsession by tractors. Construction.
Tractors are great.
Exactly. So we had to work around that, basically, because we had to go outside and see tractors where all the constructions were, and we were playing with him. Meanwhile, gardening and watering the plants were as well is a perfect thing. So
yep.
He enjoyed it
a lot.
Fantastic. Yeah. And reading books as well. I used to read a lot of books to him.
Right. So reading, gardening, and seeing and doing and everything to do with tractors.
Exactly. Tractors.
And it's that personalized learning, isn't it? It's around their interests.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. Elena, would you like to share a child with us?
Yes, sure. But I was thinking of discussing 0 to 3 months, so from birth to 3 months.
Absolutely fine. Yeah.
So basically, I'm going to talk about all the newborns I've ever looked after. So what I like to do with newborns and from up to 3 months old, let's say that. So first of all, I know it seems silly to most people, but talking to them about everything, basically, what you're doing, how you're doing it, why. Just
narrating your day.
Yeah, narrate the day, even though I know they don't understand, but it just seems to me that helps with their speech development later on.
What we know is that although they don't understand individual words, A, they benefit from the interaction, the fact that you are doing something with them, and B, they learn the speech patterns of that language. And we know that children who are 3 months old who are Japanese, and Japanese children have very different speech patterns than German children. Yeah. When they compared the two, Japanese children, when they were played an unfamiliar Japanese speaker, reacted more positively than the German children. and vice versa. The German children at 3 months old reacted more positively to a sound of a German speaker than a Japanese speaker. And this is not to do with being racist babies. This is to do with thinking, this is what I know, this is what I'm learning. So although they will not understand the content yet of what you say, they are learning, this is how my language sounds, or this is how the language, you know, which is being used sounds, which is why if we want children to be bi or trilingual, starting from birth is extremely good, because they are embedding, this is how things sound in this language. So yeah, they won't understand those individual words, but they do understand that something good is happening, and we're embedding, this is what language does. Maria.
I am taking care of newborn. He's not 28 days yet, and he is from Vietnam.
Oh.
And the parents asked me to speak with him in Portuguese, obviously. So they speak with him in Vietnamese, and I do speak in Portuguese. Is he going to be confused?
No.
Because,
No.
No. Children are absolutely capable of being bi or trilingual from birth. If a parent is aiming for a child to be fluent bilingual, then they need to be hearing the extra language, so the language that is not where they live. They need to be hearing that around 60-70% of the time.
Okay.
So it's absolutely possible. You're not confusing the child. But where is this family based? Where are they living?
In Portugal.
In Portugal. It's do what you're doing, but what they need to know is it's more important for their child to hear Vietnamese than it is to hear Portuguese.
Why?
Because living in Portugal, by 3 or 4 years old, their child will understand Portuguese, even if they never speak it, because of TV, nursery, being in the shops. So it's brilliant that you're there and you're doing that. Please keep doing it. But what the parents need to know is if they want their child to speak Vietnamese fluently so that they can go home, they can speak to grandmother, they should keep speaking Vietnamese for at least 60-70% of the time in the home.
Okay.
So they, for the best possible bilingualism, speak the language that is different to the country most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's the important message. So their baby will not be at all confused. That will be fine. But it's about them keeping up their language more, because the baby will learn Portuguese through living in Portugal. Even if the parents didn't speak Portuguese, if they didn't speak it at all, then the baby will pick that up over the first few years of life.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Right. Okay.
So should I keep going with 2 more things or not?
No, sorry. I've got distracted and forgot. My apologies.
Okay.
I would love you to.
No problem. No problem. But just one more thing to add about talking from birth is because I've heard that accents form before 6 months old. So if a baby has never heard a language and they're already 6 months and above, then they will never be actually speaking with the native accent.
No,
and
that's not true.
No, not true.
Not true.
No,
there's no science for that.
Really.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, just something I've heard.
Demonstrate that from children who have moved in early childhood from one country to another. So an anecdote isn't data. So my story does not mean it's true. It is true, and here is a story to illustrate it. So my friend, twins in England, for the first 3.5, 4 years of life, and I visited them now in Germany, and they are German native speakers, but they only spoke English at home. They never taught their children German. They only just spoke English because that's what they spoke together. And then they went to Germany, made a life there, and the children are German native speaker. And they're maybe 5 years old. It took about a year. So it's absolutely possible to speak with native accent after 6 months. Okay. Completely possible. I'll dig out some research on that. Remind me on the email.
Yes, sure. But do you think it's that because they relocated to Germany? Because if they have never done that.
It is about being in that situation.
Mhm.
So they're hearing it, and that assimilation is what's teaching it.
Yes.
But yeah, even if they had a Spanish mother and a German father, and they only started Spanish at 3-4 years, that does not mean they can never have the accent.
Okay.
So that isn't based in fact. They
Mhm.
can assimilate. Young children are amazing at assimilating.
Okay. So
And
then,
actually, you
oh,
see this even within the UK, that young people go to university and maybe 18, and they will lose their native accent. So, you know, the UK has many different accents, which are very strong. When a young person, some of them are not so well looked on, shall we say? So, you know, they may be made fun of or not so good for jobs because of the accent of the place in the UK where they come. Often they'll come to university at 18 and they will drop that accent and speak like a Londoner or something like that. So it's completely possible to change accent all the way through childhood into, you know, into very early adulthood.
got it. All right. So another thing is, which I think is important, is music. So basically, play music or sing songs, and I don't mean just nursery rhymes, any songs, and dance with the baby.
Absolutely.
And tummy time for activity.
Yes, very important for those 0 to 3 month olds. We want to have them on their tummy because, of course, we used to put them to sleep on their tummies, but now we don't. We need to make sure that they are having adequate tummy time, so they can develop and be avoiding flathead syndrome as well.
Yes. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Right, so I've then got some slides which are different age ranges, and please don't take them that I can only do these things at this age, because that's not how it's intended. These are good ideas at this age, but of course you can use them before and afterwards. So from birth, as we just said, tummy time. We want to have that every day in the baby's routine. So that means having baby like this for some of the day. It doesn't mean that it has to be half an hour, because baby will get very upset for half an hour, many like this. So what I often suggest is that every time you change a nappy, which you do like this, change the nappy, turn over, and just have a couple of minutes of playtime before you then move off to your other activity. And that's then going to happen 6-8 times a day for a couple of minutes. And it's a really good way of encouraging that tummy time into the day. When you have baby on the floor on their tummy, get down so that you are next to them. So if baby's like this, you're like this, so that we've got the head. What are we doing? So you are on the floor with them, because babies hate tummy time when you do that and you're up here somewhere. You know, this is not very fun for baby, is it? Because they can't see you. They don't have object permanence, if you remember. So if they can't see you, you're not there. If they can't sense you, that, you know, you're just gone, and they have no understanding that you're just in the other room or you're just over the other side of the room, because they're not at that stage yet. So if you'll have baby, let's have baby down here, and we can help turn the head one way or the other. Make sure that you do it different ways round. So don't always be speaking this way to baby. Swap baby round so they have opportunities to move the head both ways. Particularly if mum has a cot and always puts the baby in the same way and she's like this side of the baby's going to be doing much more turning this way, isn't it? So in the daytime, practice turning the other way. If she feeds on one side more than another, practice the other way with the baby. And so this is just giving baby that equal movement on each side. I'm sure if you go to the gym, your instructor will always say, if you do an exercise with this hand, do it with this hand as well. So we're going to make sure that baby has time to turn the head both ways. And if you notice that baby turns one way a lot easier, focus more on turning the other way by you positioning yourself the other side of that baby. And this helps build coordination. It strengthens all of this down here, their arms, their necks, their shoulders. Of course, at the beginning, they won't be lifting up. So we're going to help them put their head on one side or the other. But very soon, they'll start to lift their head up. So make sure you are there or a toy is there. But that always you will be better than a toy. These are all things you've said, talking and singing, whatever you say. It's about narrating your day, reading books, singing, whatever it is you're saying. It doesn't have to be baby friendly. And research shows that children in talkative families, like Elena had said, just saying, you know, this is what I'm doing all day long, will have heard 30 million more words directed to them by the age of 3 than families from less talkative families. So that we're talking huge amounts of input, and all of that input is building brain cells. And the more words children have heard at age 3, the better they do on tests of intelligence, cognitive tests. So talk, 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 talk. Reading, I've talked about. It's not about reading the words and teaching the words. It's just having this book, saying what you can see, using silly faces, having the touchy things, having different books, lift the flaps, different experiences, and talking about the child as well as the book. So always relating the child's life to what's in the book. Moving, so dancing, even with a 3-year-old, we're going to do dancing with them. We're going to go fly, baby, you know, fly up and down, those big games. And that's really helped develop the baby's vestibular system, that inner ear that helps with our balance. If they're not moving very much, they don't get the opportunity to find out what it feels like. So lots of big movements. Obviously, you're not going to do this all day, every day. It's something that happens within the day a few times. And you're going to be watching the baby to say, are they tired? Are they upset? When's the right time to do this with them? When you do this, just do it for a minute or so, and then give the baby some time to rest, physically rest. So we're not doing this for 5-10 minutes at a time. That's too much for a little baby from birth. And then touch. We're going to think that out of the womb, everything is new. And we talked about that 4th trimester of, you know, the feel of your clothes is new, the feel of blankets is new, but we can use that positively to introduce new textures. So sheepskins, silks, cottons. It doesn't just have to be nice textures though. We're not going to hurt the baby, but bumpy things that are a little bit scratchy, like a nail brush. You know, we don't hurt the baby, but we're giving different sensations onto the baby's skin. And again, can do it on hands, on face, on the belly, on the back. So what can they feel on different parts of them? Again, a minute at a time is fine. We're not doing long sessions with these babies. That's too much, but just short, sharp, a few times a day. Water covering the body, again, another sensation. So we don't need to bath babies daily, but we can make that a new experience. So we can have them in the bath, we can trickle water onto them, we can splash water onto them, see what they like. So right from birth, all of these things can happen. And then, as I say this is from 1 month. I'm not saying that if your baby's 2 weeks old, you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying, you know, these are good things to start to introduce, because you don't do everything on day 1. So Jana, you were finger fun, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can have puppets, or we can just watch fingers dance together. Up, down, side to side, slowly. And we're going to have about 18 inches or less from the face. So remembering at birth, baby can see from here to here. Because again, this is how nature's designed us. She's seeing from the boob to the face. So we're going to keep them about that distance. Visuals, so black and white patterns, holding objects and allowing baby to watch them as they move, having black and white patterns by the changing mat, so they've got something to sit and look at. We say black and white. It's not that you can only have black and white. It's just we know as babies' visual systems are developing, that contrast between light and dark is the thing they are interested in the most. So don't be like, I can only have black and white. It's just the idea of light and dark is something that they develop first of all. So make your own, draw big patterns on cardboard from the back of cereal packets, and, you know, put that by the changing mat, or put that in front of them for tummy time. Swatting, there. Swatting things. So there we go. So having something above their head that they can go, They're not going to do it deliberately yet, but it's starting to encourage that, oh, when my hand does this thing, oh, that moves. We're starting on a journey of what happens with our hands and our movement. And things that do that make noises or are shiny or, you know, always going to be good fun. Floor play. So we're going to have that tummy time still. We're going to have them on their back and on their front during the day. What's generally not good for babies is sitting in bouncers. It's fine to do it sometimes, but that doesn't develop anything. And babies are kind of squished here. It's not so good for their digestion. So use bouncers when you need to, you know, use them because you have to cook dinner and you want baby to be there with you. You know, use them because you have to have a cup of tea and it's hot. But a baby in a bouncer isn't helping the baby at all. So use it because it helps you, it helps the mum for a short period of time, no more than really 20 minutes at a time. And again, going out and about. So this can, day one, we can go out and about. I've put it from 1 month. We can do it from whenever the mum wants. And getting them to the park, getting them outside, having our blankets outside, and they can feel the grass, they can see the sun, or in the UK, they can feel the rain. So dress baby for the weather and get out as much as possible. And then you can talk about all the things that are going past. Nursery rhymes. So I've put in some English nursery rhymes, but you know, they're not magic. Please sing what you were sung as a child. So things that, you know, whatever your mother sang to you, sing to your babies. And I've given English examples because that's what I know. But things like the wheels on the bus has lots of hand movements, so we can move babies' hands. So the wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round. And what we're doing is we're moving those hands over their midline. And these sort of movements are really helping baby to go, oh, this is, you know, this is how arms can move. We're having symmetrical movements, and it encourages the development of their motor skills. Again, they're not, if you never did this, they would still learn those motor skills, but you know, we can do things that are, you know, are positive for that baby. Sitting on a bouncing ball, we call them gym balls or birth balls, the very big ones, you know, this height that mother may have sat on for the birth. Have baby there is lovely. We can move forward and back when baby's young and hold them. When baby's older, we can put their body on the ball and move them forward and back on the ball. Again, you're developing that vestibular system, that feeling of where they are in space. And mirrors. Mirrors are great. So an unbreakable mirror made of plastic in front of baby, and they don't know it's them yet, but they like seeing faces, they like seeing babies. So mirrors are great. Mirrors all the time. Massage, and here I've given some instructions for a baby massage. There are lots and lots and lots of ways to do this. This is just one short example of massage. So if you know other ways, please use other ways. What I always suggest is that you ask permission. It's starting teaching the child that this is their body and that they have their choices. And that's what we want for our young people, isn't it? To know that they have choices. So we start this from birth by saying, would you like a massage? And if baby's crying, then no, they probably don't want a massage. Have a little bit of oil, and it's going to help tell the baby this is the words that are used and this thing happens. So like Elena said, they won't understand those words, but it becomes a pattern that I say this and this happens, and I can hear those sounds mean this. And it's good to massage the whole of the body. And I've given some examples of some strokes for legs and feet. I'm not going to go into them now. It's not a baby massage course, but there's something there that you can go back to and try on a doll, try on a baby with mother's permission. And there are many, many great videos to show you how to do this, but there's just a, you know, a chunk of examples here. But if I do it, I'll go over time. So again, from 2 months means many babies of this age like it. Not that you can't start before, but that peep-o, peekaboo. Either the blanket is on you, like this, or it's over the baby. See what the baby likes. If they don't like having a blanket on them, do it on you instead. And it's one-sided at first. You know, you're not expecting baby to be absolutely amazed by this, but they will grow to love it. and then grasping and holding. So holding toys where they can start to reach for them. So give things that they can actually hold and grasp, like soft toys. It's not going to be a shiny ball. At 2 months, they're not going to be able to grasp that. So something soft that they can grasp on, or a rattle that they can grasp. And it's going to go, if they get it, it's going to go to their mouth. So make sure that the toys are safe for that. And then rattly toys, wiggly toys, things that have light or color or noise. And you can have them now slightly further away because their eyesight's developing, they can see things further. 3 months, when babies really start to find their feet, putting foot rattles on is great. The little rattles that actually attach around the ankles, or they have socks with jangles on, because baby's going to be doing this anyway. And they suddenly realize that this is really fun. Baby gyms are great from 3 months, those things that go over the top of baby, and they'll start to be swatting around or grasping them, but do flip them over, still have the tummy time as well. Balloons, great fun. Never leave a baby with a balloon. Never leave a baby with a balloon, because if it bursts, it's a choke hazard. But a helium balloon on a bracelet or a bangle that goes up and down can be wonderful fun. Teething toys, it doesn't mean that they're starting to teeth at this side, but they like putting things in their mouth. So having toys that can go in their mouth is really important, making sure that they're safe for the baby. And then lots of naming their body parts. So it could be songs, head, shoulders, knees and toes, but you don't have to sing that. You can sing, you know, head, tummy, tummy tickles, head, tummy, you know, you make it up, whatever you want to teach the baby in whatever language they have. But naming parts of the body is one of the first things that we teach. And then what's this game? So have a pillowcase or a bag and you're shaking it and, oh, you show them a tissue. Oh, you show them a pen. They do not have to be expensive things. Baby will just be like, wow, there's a thing. It's a very exciting game that you can do with anything around the house. You know, oh, it's a tin of Sudocrem for your nappies. It doesn't matter, because it's about the fact that there's a bag, there's something hidden, and then it's out. That's the thing that they're enjoying, not that it's expensive toys or different teddies. So really good game. And then lots of other ideas I've got here on a link at the bottom. So if you want lots of ideas to play, that's a great place to go. So I'm going to put you into pairs, and I'd like you to write a list you could share with parents. And you're going to think about a 3-month-old. So this is probably towards the end of your maternity nurse contract. Roughly, we're going to work until maybe 12 or 16 weeks. So we're going to say, well, these are things I've been enjoying playing with your baby. These are things that you could play with your baby now that I'm going. So let me get breakout rooms, 2 breakout rooms, right. Okay. It's put Jana together with Maria and Adriana with Elena. And when you think of these ideas, I'd like you to suggest, do you think this should be something that you do several times over the day, 2 or 3 times? Something that you should try and do every day, or a few times a week, or maybe once a week. So once a week might be going swimming. We wouldn't probably do swimming several times a day, but that might be a once a week activity. So 3-month-old baby, some ideas for parents that they can do a few times a day, every day once, few times a week, or once a week. And this is Bella Rose, and you can see she's got her, she's 3 months in this picture, and we set her up with a homemade baby gym. So we didn't buy a baby gym. We, you know, had an umbrella and we tied some toys onto it, and we have her mirror because babies love mirrors. We've got some soft ribbons. That shiny is that material that you put on, like if you in a marathon and you're cold at the end, that material.
Yeah.
And then she's got one of her toys as well, and she's got a rattle, a maraca rattle there. So some things for her was like a sensory den. Okay, so we'll have maybe 3 minutes on this in your rooms. So a few activities for a 3-month-old and how often you would recommend them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There we go. Rooms are open. You staying there or not? Fine. Get out of the way, darling.
Lyra. 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 Why are the dogs here? Come on.
Okay, that's everybody back. Just take yourselves off mute if it's put you on mute. Right, so room 1, which was Jana and Maria. What did you decide to recommend to the family?
So several times a day, we would recommend tummy time.
Good.
Singing and dancing with the baby.
Thank you.
Well,
And room 2, Adriana and Elena, what would you recommend daily for this, for your family?
We said
Daily.
the same. Oh, daily. Oh, sorry. Daily. Maybe bath. Some people bath daily.
Yeah, a 3 months old. Yeah, a good fun bath.
Yes. Bath time, you know, it can be fun.
And
another
then
thing-
if you
yeah.
two want to carry on with a few times a week as well.
Oh, I'm with a few times a week.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, a few times a week we were discussing maybe a massage
Mhm.
for the baby.
Going out.
Going
with
out
the-
as well. Going out, yeah. Out
Lovely.
and about.
And then Jana and Maria, what would you say maybe do weekly with this baby?
Maybe joining some groups
Mhm.
or visiting relatives.
Lovely. Do you want to go out again? Right. Has anyone got something that wasn't mentioned? Is there anything that a group that had a good idea that no one said?
I would like to mention one thing.
Please.
Sure. So the activity that you mentioned about using a bag or a pillowcase with different things in it. So if they're appropriate for the baby to have them, because they will go in baby's mouth.
Yes.
But if they would be different textures, so we show them to the baby and then the baby can explore them as well. And that also a sensory at the same time as well.
Perfect. Lovely. Thank you. Yes. So you've got two different things. You've got showing and then you've got
Yeah.
showing but giving. And obviously anything
Yes.
that you give to a baby must be safe for that baby.
Mhm.
Thank you. Right. We're now going to move on to infant attachment. There we go. And this is it's a theory, but it is a very well respected theory. So it's not something that is absolutely sure is true, but it's something that seems to be repeatable over time. So it's becoming more accepted. Is about one aspect of the parent and child relationship that makes the child feel safe and secure and protected. So this is not about looking after the child's physical needs. Infant attachment isn't about feeding them, clothing them, making sure they are warm and free from harm. It's what the caregiver, what the parent does when the child feels threatened or hurt or frightened. So whether that threat is real or not, how does the caregiver respond when the child is showing that they are upset or anxious? And we believe that babies recognize what their caregiver, what their parent does most of the time. And that helps them to form their own behaviors. So it's not every time, but the majority response of what the parent does will change and affect what the baby does. So we have different types of attachment here. So sensitive and loving parents, that's an organized strategy. That means that this happens most times. So the baby's crying or upset, the parent is, oh, darling, here we go. The baby realizes that that is going to happen most of the time. And that promotes a secure attachment because they know their needs are going to be met. Oh, baby, oh, it's okay. Mummy's going to make me feel better. If every time the baby cries, oh, well, you're fine, I'm going to walk away. That's still an organized strategy. It means that the parent does that most of the time. The baby learns this is what happens in my world. So organized is good, but the response isn't necessarily good. If you're rejecting that baby and saying, no, I'm not going to deal with you, I'm going to leave you to cry, I'm going to walk away, as a chosen parenting strategy, that can lead to insecure, avoidant behaviors in the child, which means the child stops seeking, stops asking for that help. Third type is insensitive, inconsistent. So they're not sensitive, but sometimes they come to the baby and sometimes they don't. So sometimes they're having, something, and sometimes they're walking away. And that is still classed as organized because you've just got two different responses. But that leads to an attachment which is insecure resistant, i.e. the baby, when the parent goes to them, will go, no, thank you. I can't deal with this now because I don't know how to deal with it. You don't always be nice, so I don't know what to do when you are. And then the last one is called atypical, and it's a disorganized style. This is where the parent responds in a way which is frightening to the child. So instead of just leaving them and not doing anything, these are responses that might be shouty or tearful or very emotionally driven, scaring the child, shaking the child, these sort of attachments, which is a disorganized style. The child never knows what they're going to get. And this type of attachment leads to insecure, disorganized. The child is all over the place. They are sometimes very clingy, sometimes push the parents away. There's no consistency at all. So caregivers who respond to a child by picking them up and reassuring them and enabling them to feel secure mean that two things. That one, that child is allowed to show negative emotions. It's not just about shutting the child up and stop. You're allowed to say it's okay to be sad. And the second part is, I will comfort you. Parents who always or mostly go, you're upset, deal with it, walking away, often result in the infant avoiding that caregiver or just not signaling. So if the baby isn't talking, isn't walking, they just don't signal. They stop crying out at night, which is where that behavioural sleep training comes from. Long enough, if you don't respond to your baby for long enough, they'll learn what's the point. So they don't signal to the parent. Those inconsistent, unpredictable parents who change between different things or who react in very emotional ways, they're crying, they are angry, results in the infant displaying very extreme behaviours because just crying doesn't get a response all the time. So the infant becomes extreme in response to the parent being extreme. And in terms of abuse situations, risk situations, we think around 15% of infants that are in what we call low psychological risk, so that they're unsafe but a low level of unsafe, and 82% in high risk situations where there is domestic violence, for example, often have caregivers who give these unusual response patterns. So when you've got children whose behaviours are very, very unusual, often it can be traced back to the parents' behaviours in risky situations being very unusual. So there's lots of things happening and the parent response was scary or upset, wasn't comforting. So the bonds are built from birth. This starts at birth, but generally around 6 months is when these behaviours become clear in the child. So even though it's being learnt from birth, your 2-month-old has really only two options, cry and not cry. But a 6-month-old, we can see different behaviours. And from 12 months onwards, for that first year of life, from 12 months till second year of life, sometimes psychologists do something called the stranger test, which is where your parent sits in a room with a child and the researcher is also in the room. The parent leaves the room and then returns. And the researcher is looking at what happens, what does the baby do when the parent comes back in? Are they mummy, 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 which is completely normal? Are they, oh, my mum's back, I'll continue playing, which is less normal? It's showing that they've got an avoidance strategy. They're not going to go and interact with with their mum, who is their carer. Or do they display something which is unusual? They shriek, they scream, there is an atypical behaviour. So it's a test that psychologists will do to measure infant attachment. And a secure attachment would be, I miss my mum, mummy, and mummy gives you a big cuddle or reassures you. And we know that having a secure attachment correlates, there's a strong degree of how it affects many other things like education, how they do at school, how they do in relationships as an adult, and disorganized attachment. So when the parent's response is very unusual, that often results in children with a lot of problems, be that criminal behaviors, sexualized behaviors, some severe problems. The bit in the middle where the parent is not responding but is consistent in that, we are still learning about what impact that has on the child. We don't know that that's definitely a huge negative impact. It's not that, you know, people who sleep train their children end up with children in jail. You know, there's not that attached, you know, that correlation. But we're not sure quite where those behavior, you know, where the cutoff for those behaviors are in terms of what becomes negative for the child. Still something that is being researched. I'm just going to close the door because it's really chilly here. So a quote here, and you've got all the references at the bottom. So during the first 6 months of life, promptly picking up the baby who's crying is associated with 4 major outcomes by 12 months. That they cry less, this idea of self-soothing, that actually the baby who the parent picks them up and holds them learns to be able to settle themselves you know, over the first 12 months, because they're taught that co-regulation. This is how you calm down. And then if the baby needs the caregiver to soothe them, the baby comes down from that crying state quicker if they are, for the first 6 months, picked up very quickly. And finally, the caregiver who responds promptly and warmly most of the time, and it doesn't need to be 100%, it's actually around 50%. So if the parent does this more often than not, that's what we think creates that secure, organized attachment. And something which is quite recently being looked into is the difference between sensitive parenting, which is really looking at the child and trying to judge their emotions and to react according to their emotions, and the idea of the parent holding their child until they've calmed. And there's some really interesting stuff around that, the difference between the two. I'm just going to bring up another slide to illustrate this. 1 second, hang on. Day one. Hang on, let me stop this share, and I'm going to share one other. So this is something I've put new in that I haven't put into your lot yet, but I want to tell you about. Where is it? Here we go. Right, let me share this. Okay, So most recent research is around secure base provision. The idea that when your baby cries, holding them here until they have finished crying is the most important part of this supporting attachment. And the quote that I just want to look at, which I will put into your slides, but haven't yet, so I'll put that up and put that on the Google Drive. It's at the end of each crying episode that the infant learns whether, on average, the caregiver can be counted on as being available to the infant as they get to that calm state, or whether the infant must stop crying alone. And what this research is showing is it may not be about the speed at which you respond. It may not be cry, cry, quickly get in there. It's the fact that you have got in there at some point, and then you have the baby until they have finished calming down. So that's secure base provision. And there is actually in your handout notes for this session, let me just find them and I'll show you it. Doobie-doobie-doo. So when you go to the Google Drive, this is one of the documents here. So I'll put it into the slideshow very briefly, but this is actually the long document about secure base provision. So you don't need to read this now. It's just to show you this is in the Google Drive for you. So do have a read of it because it's really interesting, and this kind of new thinking that we used to think it was about that sensitivity, that going quickly to a child was the important bit. And it may be that actually it's not so much about the speed, but the staying with them until they completely stop crying that is important. But these are theories. We do not know. There is no one way. And we don't know whether there's a difference between doing that within the first 2 or 3 minutes of the child crying and doing it 20 minutes after the child started crying. This sort of thing is not clear. So what parents have to do, and what you have to support parents to do, is to use their intuition. There is not a magic number. Do this at this time. This will be work for your child. It's about the parent thinking, what do I feel is right for my child? And supporting the parent to be consistent in those responses, more than 50% of the time responding to that child. So we have the last activity for the last 5 minutes, and I'm going to put you into different pairs. Right, so let's have Maria moving to room 2. So Maria and Adriana, you will be together, and Elena and Diana will be together. And it's the situation that you will often face as a maternity nurse, that the two parents, if there are two, have different views on what should happen. They genuinely think different things should happen. And their baby is now 7 months old. We've put, they're growing well, they're healthy, and they're formally fed. So there's nothing wrong with the baby, okay? Nothing, this baby is fine. And the mum said to you, she'd come back and said to you, my partner thinks the baby should be left when he cries and that he will learn not to cry. And I understand that, but it makes me really upset when I hear him. So as a result, when we do the nights, he does it one way and I do it another. So I want you to have a discussion about what would you share with that parent? What information would you share? What discussion would you have? And also if there's anything that you say, I wouldn't say this, or I wouldn't do this. Okay, so we're going to have maybe 2 minutes on that in pairs. So there's nothing wrong with a 7-month-old baby, you know, cries at night. This is normal. The parents know it's normal. One parent thinks one thing, another parent thinks another way. How would you support those parents to come to a decision together? Right, I will open your rooms. Okay, one room back. Just wait for the others. They've got 6 seconds and it'll close whether they want to or not. Still
They like
chatting.
talking.
Yeah, definitely they were still talking. There we go. Sorry, we had to bring you back. Right, okay.
Had lots to say.
Right. Let's start with Maria and Adriana. Just a couple of key points. What would you do or what wouldn't you do for this family?
So what I learned from you and from the level 3 is because there is a lot of teacher in me, and it's do this, don't do, to choose that language where you could say, we understand your point of view. So basically bring them into the discussion. How about this? How about that? And then we both agreed with Maria that there is a big confusion, actually scare behind actually acting two separate different ways.
Yeah.
And so maybe
That's almost worse for the child than either of the ways, isn't it? That
Yes.
difference is the bigger problem for the child, because the child is not going to be harmed by either way. You know, I might agree with one and not with other, but we're not going to hurt the child.
Yes.
But that inconsistency is going to have a big impact.
Exactly. That's the inconsistency of the treatment of different parenting.
Absolutely. Right, Jana and Elena, I know we dragged you back kicking and screaming from that room. What were you talking about?
Well, so yes, that inconsistency, as I've noted from one of your slides, just leads to the infant displaying more extreme negative emotions in order to get the attention of the parents.
Yeah.
So that's
because they don't know which one works. Does being quiet work? Does crying work? So they up the game.
Yeah.
To something even bigger because they don't know what to do.
And that maybe we should discuss with the parents that just the idea of being a good enough parent, that maybe they should reach a compromise where they respond to at least 50% of the crying.
Yeah, it's that good enough is good enough. Yeah. And that's perfect, because it brings me on to the last thing that is on your Google Drive. So you've got your slides from today. You've got the first thing I showed you about the secure base, and this is the second thing to read, which is about a good enough parent. So your homework is to read. It's not to do anything, because the level 4 course is only 2 weeks, and you have the big level 3 assignment and you have a big level 4 assignment. So there isn't any videos to do at this point. This is because we're going further on. We're expecting now that you can look after a baby. You know, what we're doing now is saying, let's read more, let's learn more. So your assignment is, please read what is on the Google Drive, and you will use this within your assignment. Okay. So we've got webinars to watch. You've got Play by Dr. Dave Neal and Child Development by Julia Sudbury. Those are both on the Manta YouTube.
Okay.
And then later on, there will be the weaning one, and there's another one which I can't remember. It's gone out of my head. But yes, so watch those over the course of the 2 weeks. None of the webinars must be watched in order this time. It's there to support what we're doing. Watch it in your own time. And the reading, again, you do not need to do the reading before the lesson. It's there to support you in this higher level learning. Okay. Right. I'm only 3 minutes late, so that's pretty good for me.
Okay.
Any questions before I say goodbye, and we'd see you again on Thursday?
Nope.
At the moment, no.
Okay, great stuff. I will see you all then. Bye bye now.
Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.